if Wolfram language development kind of just fit in there seamlessly. So that's what I'm going to be talking about. I'm going to try to hold off questions too much. I'm going to look maybe at questions sparingly, but there's going to be a workshop at 11, an hour long, just about this same topic, helping people through with setup and answering questions in detail. So I'm not going to be answering too many questions from chat now. And I'll go back and I'll see if there's like little piddly things, but I'll go back and prepare things for an hour from now at 11, or an hour and a half or whatever, in 2 hours. I'm in Cincinnati, and I don't know what time zone I'm in right now. And so, yeah, so just FYI, I may not be being good about questions right now. So anyway, so people probably know what text editors are. People probably know what integrated development environments are, but you may be wondering what language server protocol is. So this is the main page for LSP. LSP is a protocol that is published and maintained by Microsoft, but it's just a protocol that is described with English. It's not there's no, library from Microsoft that you need to download or anything, but it is a protocol in the way that HTTP is a protocol that specifies a way that a language server and a language client may communicate, so that you start solving this problem of teaching text editors and IDEs about other languages, so that you don't have to actually fill out, how do I teach Visual Studio about, some obscure, Oberon or something? How do I teach BB Edit about Fortran? You don't have to fill out the full matrix. You implement a server for whatever language you're interested in, and then a client can understand the language server protocol, and it understands all implementations of language servers, that exist. So it's kind of like it's a protocol that saves time and energy and kind of creates this kind of lowest common denominator type situation for languages, which might be a bad thing in some cases, but overall, I think is a great benefit for the industry. So anyway, this is me presenting my work implementing Wolfram Language, language server, and some various clients that are taking advantage of it that we've provided specific support for. So you can learn more about language server protocol from this page. So mainly going to be talking about Sublime Text and Visual Studio Code. And I don't have much in this notebook because I'm going to be spending a lot of time in the editors themselves, but I wanted to provide a few links for the source of the source code and where you can get the plugins themselves. And so, keep wanting to actually stay in Chrome, but grouping tabs together. I don't use Chrome very much. Anyway, so Wolfram Research has a presence on GitHub. We have a official Wolfram Research account, and there are lots of repos that we have open sourced and that we maintain. And I put a lot of these up here, just updated recently, so they're like the last updated. But so Sublime, the source for the Sublime package is just here on GitHub that you can look at if you want to. I'm not going to like go through everything, but the source is available. I'm just showing. And then VS Code, the extension for Visual Studio Code, the source that we have is just here. Now, you might immediately be wondering, it's like, well, if I'm talking about language server protocol and talking about how easy it is to implement these languages and clients just understand things, then why do we need separate plugins for these clients? Doesn't that kind of defeat the whole purpose? And that gets to what I was saying about lowest common denominator. If you wanted to maintain just lowest common denominator type situation, we wouldn't even actually need these plugins for VS Code and Sublime, but there are a few features that I've implemented that are not part of Language Server Protocol that I would still very much like to have. And so I've actually, created a Sublime package and a Visual Studio Code extension that adds just a little bit more special sauce. And so it doesn't add anything that LSP didn't already have, but it just adds, it's a little bit of the icing on the cake. And I can get into like what those are, but yeah. So anyway, that's what these links are. And if you are a user of Sublime Text, then you are probably also familiar with package control, the system that you use to manage the packages in Sublime. And I'm glad to announce that Wolfram Language has an official package on package control. This was actually, if people are familiar with Victor Corford's existing Wolfram Language package, we've actually forked that and taken that over, and it's now the official. This is now the official blessed Wolfram Language Sublime package, and and there is also an official Visual Studio Code, Wolfram Research, Wolfram Language extension that was built up from scratch. So yeah, so these are just links. You don't even have to visit these are just pages, but I just thought that was interesting. So anyway, on to the show. So you might be wondering, how do I actually get these things? I don't feel like building anything from GitHub. I don't feel like reading anything. I just want things to start working, and they can. If you already have package control installed and everything, if you already know how to do things, then it's very simple. You say install package and install the Wolfram Language package, and now you're ready to go. So that is, give it a second. The language server will start, and you will know that because I have some code. You see a little squiggly line pop up. So what all of this means, what you're looking at right now, is syntax highlighting in Sublime powered by the thing that I just installed. But that's kind of like static, and people are kind of used to syntax highlighting, and it's not, maybe not so exciting. What is more exciting is the fact that you get a little squiggly line under this true. You might wonder what that is. So you go and hover over it. Switch has true in last place. There's a suggestion, replace true with underscore. Maybe the underline is, maybe maybe the font could use some work, but that's an underline. And this is like a common problem with people not mixing up switch and which in Wolfram Language. And so I can just click on that, and that fixes that problem. And so this is a little inkling of what is now being provided in Sublime and in VS Code. And there are a lot of other features too that I'm going to go into. But yeah, so things just work. And what's actually happening underneath here is that there is an actual Wolfram Language kernel that is running as a child process of Sublime. And it's kind of like this inversion of terms that, like, people with X term in different systems, or if there's a video server that's actually launched as a child, and you get used to it. Sublime is the client here, and it's launched a child server process, and it's just a regular kernel that's running. So it's talking through standard in and out, and it's just doing its thing, and it is communicating via that protocol, LSP. So, and I can, and then show. So this is Visual Studio Code. If you want to install Wolfram Language here, you can do the same thing. Be careful with Visual Studio Code. Make sure what you install is from Wolfram Research. There's nothing nefarious going on, but just, everyone else is not Wolfram Research. So just make sure you're installing the right one if you're trying to get the one from Wolfram Research. And you just install that and look at that, so I can open up the same file and you get syntax highlighting and give it a second and the kernel starts up and you get the same thing. Yeah, so anyway, it's a similar, I'm aiming for a similar experience between Sublime and VS Code right now, maybe not complete parity, but largely the same experience. And this is all provided by LSP, already. So there's nothing even specific between Sublime and VS Code, just yet. So anyway, so yeah, so things are working, but you might immediately even see that there are different colors, and all that this is, there are slightly different just default color schemes. This isn't anything that I'm doing yet. Everything is dark mode now. Sorry if people want light mode stuff. Like I wasn't even expecting GitHub on Chrome to be dark mode, but apparently that's a switch they've made. And so, but the specific colors being used are just these, it's a default, whatever, Monakai or something was. I forget what the default is, but yeah, I think I may have set. Yeah. So I've derived a theme from the default theme, and for lack of a better term, I've just named it after myself for the time. This is a very temporary thing, but I've tweaked some of the token, some of the colorings, because a goal of mine is to create a contrast of colors so that it's easy to find unrecognized symbols. And what I mean by that is these A, B, C, D symbols that you might see, those are all white, and you see everything else is colored. The system doesn't know what to do with the A, B, C, and D symbols. And so, they're just like not colored. And I want those to stand out more as probably errors or typos that you have. And so I've done a lot of things. Like one thing that I've done is tweak the color of quotation marks to be slightly darkened, because, you already know you're in a string. And so you don't need these bright, quotation marks popping out. So anyway, that's just some of the things I've done in VS Code. But you'll see that these are different. You don't get the same colors because we're dealing with different clients. Sublime is not Visual Studio Code. And so, for example, one thing with Sublime is that you don't actually have semantic highlighting. So you don't have a way of coloring these symbols differently. So if it's not some built-in thing, then it's not, and it can't be recognized statically by the syntax highlighter, then it's just not recognized at all. So, different clients have different sets of features. So that's, that's just the world that different clients are different. So that's just like an overview of what you're seeing. Things might be a little bit different than what you're expecting, but so anyway. But yeah, so when you install in Sublime, you do see all of this nice syntax highlighting, and you'll see that the built-in symbols are colored specifically. Operators are colored a different color, and those are built in. And I put great effort into supporting the entire language. And when 13 ships, I will be updating the syntax of built-in symbols based on what has changed, in the new version. I'm not maintaining, multiple versions, but just when a new version ships, I do update the syntax, and it's a very, it's a process that is done. So I want to have things stay up to date. And every so often when we create new operators in the language itself, those are added as well. So syntax highlighting will always be, correct to the latest version. And so you might see why, you might be wondering why foo is colored differently here than here. Oh, actually, I see chat on Zoom. Sorry, I don't know. So the syntax highlighting system itself in Sublime can understand function definitions because it's simply, colon, some expression before colon equals at top level. That is a thing that can be done in syntax highlighting. And so you get a function definition kind of for free in Sublime. And what I mean by that is users of Sublime may be familiar with the go-to functionality. Go-to anything is a big feature of Sublime. But a big thing is go-to definition that people use in other languages. And so if you do go-to definition, if I do that there, and it jumps up to line 8, and that does that purely through syntax highlighting. This isn't even anything related to LSP yet. This is just a purely built-in Sublime thing, but it's very nice, and all of that is still completely supported. So anyway, that's just why those are colored differently. Yeah, so I already showed that. So there is a very, very extensive static analyzer that is built in and being used here that I can talk about in detail in other places, but there's a Packlet, you can even use it directly from Wolfram Language code, but this is just the tip of the iceberg. And I pride myself on being able, like if I just bang on the keyboard, actually, I don't want so many parentheses showing up, but I don't know, I didn't even type parentheses. Okay, anyway, why is that colored gray? Oh, does it still think oh, interesting. I wonder if that thinks I'm still in a ship. I literally typed in #. Okay, fine. That was a bad example, but you'll see I just banged on the keyboard. And so accurate error markers for the invalid syntax have appeared. The parser is doing its best to guess what should be, being done here. And so, there are missing operators. There are just simple plain errors. And then at the end, it knows that you're implicit timesing things together. And so these implicit times markers are being inserted. And these implicit times markers are an example of one thing that's not part of language server protocol, because literally no other language has implicit times. So it's not part of a standard published by Microsoft to support implicit times markers, but it's something that I feel, the front end, the notebook front end has it. And so, it's very nice if you wanted to see it. You can turn all this stuff off if you want, but and so I wanted to be able to have that. So, the client has to understand that too, to be able to actually draw them in. So that's the implicit times markers are an example of, something that goes above and beyond language server protocol. So yeah, so those are some features. I think I have not shown. Yeah. So another, really nice feature is, just hovering over symbols to get, documentation. So all of that works. And you'll notice it's actually the linear syntax is actually this is actually formatted. There's some italicized things and some, I can't do full like superscript and subscript in Markdown, but, it looks as good as it can. So and going over to VS Code, largely everything that I just said, actually, if I let me save what I just typed in there. Okay, wait, let me just reopen. I'm like tempting fate by doing all of this between two different editors. you'll see different colors, but largely the same thing, implicit times markers, everything very, very, very colorful. And so the same feature is implemented in the VS Code extension also, itself. And yeah, so I think some of the things might be I don't know. I would have to think about why things are the specific colors they are, but yeah. So that is, yeah, I'm trying to just think now. Okay, I need to not. Anyway, if we changed this, this is actually using, yeah. This is what you would see by default, unless you turned on the theme that I was talking about. Themes in Visual Studio Code have to either declare support for semantic highlighting or not. And by semantic highlighting, I mean, right now, if you look at these symbols in module, they're currently unrecognized, like they are in Sublime. And you can turn on the more expensive feature of semantic highlighting, where scoping constructs like functions and things are colored specifically. And so the theme that you're using has to be able to understand that also. And so you can actually cycle through, if you give it a second, and see what all the different themes look like, even though the drop down is currently covering up what I'm showing. But so anyway, yeah, I'm trying to, the white, there must be maybe there's even a little bug. The dollar, anyway, I needed to not get hung up on that. Anyway, yeah, so this is just like a general overview, but I wanted to also show larger actual real world code. I mean, whatever. Give it a second. The current okay, so there, the coloring pops in. This is the actual source of the code parser that is used in all of this stuff. And so this is the boxes. It's not actually being used right now, but I can parse boxes similar to, anyway. So when you scroll through, you can see a lot of things are being colored, but a lot of things are being unrecognized also. And that's just simply, some things some symbols are treated as tags, but a lot of things are actually just imported symbols from other packages that just simply aren't recognized yet. And so that's one feature that I'm working on for a next release, of being able to recognize, imports, which is, maybe goes without saying, should be a high priority for this sort of thing. But so, it takes time, but yeah, so you can see this, everything is nicely colored. You can see that, oh yeah, so even, it's actually kind of funny, I hover. So one of the features beyond just documentation, if you hover over strings that have special characters, it will show the rendered version of that string, but these are literally all space characters. And so, well, I guess not, well, that does have a graphic. A space character with ink is, well, yeah, maybe it's not, yeah, anyway, maybe actually space indicator is not space, I don't know, anyway. So you can see, yeah, something, and then some things are in the private use area of Unicode, and so cannot be rendered with the font that the markdown renderer in VS Code is using. And so I just do it just uses the name. But if I had a typo in the character name, yeah, actually you can see it right now as I'm typing. Everything's fine, but if I had a typo, then that's colored red, for example, because this is an unrecognized character. And so you get a lot of hinting as you're typing, it is responding and telling you what the problems are. And so you get a lot of just immediate feedback that saves you time and, much, pain, down the line when you discover something that you deployed, a month ago actually has a typo in it. So anyway, this was a broad overview of developing code in Wolfram Language and other editors and IDEs. There will be a workshop at 11, and I'm going to do Zoom chat. I don't know if there's anything to do yet. I will save this. Okay. Just to clarify, you have to use the Brenton WL theme current. You don't have to do, you just have to use some theme that does have semantic highlighting enabled, which I think is literally all the dark themes included, except the default one. It's just an expensive feature that's just not turned on by default. You don't have to use mine specifically, just anything else that actually has semantic highlighting enabled. I tried it in VS Code and Git, cannot start Wolfram Language. Yeah, there might be some problem. Daniel, we should definitely look at that. Or, you know, if you can't come to the workshop, exactly what will be talked about in the workshop, and, you know, we'll figure that out. Too much to, you know, go into right now. And then I will check the meeting chat. Visual Studio Code, Visual Studio, even though it uses the same letters for the extension format, is actually a completely different format. And we have not done, it's not the same, even though they talk about VSIX files, they're actually different file format. And we don't have a solution for, we don't have Visual Studio period supported yet. Yeah. Xcode or recommended. Yes. So IntelliJ, there is the IntelliJ plugin from Patrick S. Commercial plugin for Wolfram Language and IntelliJ that is highly recommended. I don't know of anything for Xcode because I don't know about, Xcode doesn't have the same, you know, extensibility, pluggability, easy pluggability as these other systems that I'm talking about. I don't think there's a recommended other solution that we have, but we can definitely talk about that more if you want, Chase. Cool. Yep. Auto code formatting seems odd. Yes, we can talk about that more if people want to. That's also, yes, I can talk about that. Drop down autocomplete is something that will be done in the future. Yes. What is the state? Turning off specific warnings at the level. We do, yeah, Bob, we have a solution. You can add things to the top of files to control the behavior for an entire file, or even around chunks of code, you know, to be able to control that. And I can show that too if people want to. Yeah, I mean, actually, I can find that real quick and just wrap up. I can't spell. Yeah. So that is just what I'm going to paste. And yep. Cool. But yeah, so that's what I wanted to say, and hopefully I'll see everyone in an hour and a half to really dive into all these details and get people set up with working with all this stuff. Thank you. That's my talk. Thanks. Bye-bye.